Imagine waking up to the sound of gentle waves lapping beneath your bedroom floor. Outside your window, not pavement or lawn, but water stretching out in every direction. No traffic, no pollution, just sleek structures rising out of the sea like futuristic lily pads. Welcome to the world of floating cities, where the line between land and ocean disappears, and humanity might just find its lifeline against climate collapse. But here's the million, or actually trillion-dollar question. Can floating cities really save us from rising seas? Or is this just another wild utopian fantasy that looks great in CGI renders but sinks under real-world pressure? Let's dive deep into the ocean of innovation, science, and a touch of controversy to find out. First, the problem. Climate change isn't just knocking on the door, it's kicking it down. Sea levels have already risen about 20 centimeters since 1900. Doesn't sound like much. Well, tell that to the 800 million people currently living in low-lying coastal areas. That's about 1 in 10 people on Earth facing potential displacement. From Jakarta to Miami, cities are sinking and coastlines are eroding. Every year, extreme storms like hurricanes and typhoons are flooding homes, washing away roads, and bankrupting insurance companies. And you know, worst of all, this isn't slowing down. If emissions keep rising, we could be looking at up to 2 meters of sea level rise by the year 2100. Entire countries like the Maldives, Tuvalu, and parts of Bangladesh could become uninhabitable. We're not just talking about losing beach houses. We're talking about a civilization-scale migration crisis. So what's the solution? We could build more seawalls, raise buildings on stilts, move everyone inland. But honestly, all of these are either temporary or incredibly expensive. At its core, a floating city is exactly what it sounds like. A human settlement that floats on water instead of sitting on solid ground. Think massive platforms made from concrete, steel, or even advanced plastic composites, engineered to be buoyant, durable, and resistant to waves, wind, and saltwater corrosion. These platforms support everything you'd find in a regular city: homes, schools, shops, parks, solar panels, desalination plants, you name it. But what really sets them apart is their adaptability. Floating cities aren't anchored to one spot forever. Many are designed to move, expand, or reconfigure based on needs. Think of them as giant modular Lego pieces drifting peacefully on the ocean. In theory, they're the perfect solution: flood-proof, self-sustaining, and scalable. But who's actually building them? Let's take a quick tour of the real-life megaprojects turning floating cities from sci-fi to seaworthy. Oceanix, Busan, South Korea. This is the world's first United Nations-backed floating city. And it's not just an idea, it's already under construction. Planned for the coast of Busan, Oceanix will be a modular city built on floating platforms that can collectively house over 12,000 people. These platforms are designed to rise and fall with the tides, anchored to the seafloor but not fixed like traditional buildings. They'll feature urban farms, solar rooftops, zero-waste systems, and even aquaculture zones to grow seafood sustainably. Think clean energy, clean water, and no cars, just boats and bicycles. The first phase is expected to be operational by 2030, and if it works, we could see Oceanix cities popping up everywhere from New York to Lagos. The Maldives floating city. Facing total submersion by the end of the century, the Maldives isn't waiting around. Instead, they're going full throttle on a floating city designed by Dutch engineering firm Water Studio. So, it's actually a network of floating hexagonal islands. These are modeled after coral formations, and they're set to house around 20,000 residents. The whole idea is to let the city grow organically, you know, block by block, just like coral slowly growing on a reef. And here's a little bonus. It's only a 10-minute boat ride from the capital. and the islands are designed to really blend in with the surrounding ecosystem. There are no huge seawalls or concrete scars, just a city that genuinely lives with the ocean, not against it. So, seasteading experiments, French Polynesia and beyond. Now here's where things get weird, and honestly kind of exciting. The Seasteading Institute, which is backed by libertarian billionaire Peter Thiel, has long dreamed of creating floating micronations on the high seas. Just think, tax-free, regulation-light, innovation zones drifting outside of any one government's control. So, their first pilot? Well, it was a floating platform off the coast of French Polynesia. It kind of fizzled out because of legal issues, but honestly, the movement hasn't died. Actually, multiple startups are still exploring seasteads, autonomous floating cities with their own governance, currencies, and, ideologies. Wild? Yeah, absolutely. But don't count them out just yet. Alright, let's talk tech. Because honestly, floating an entire city isn't as easy as just slapping pontoons under a few buildings. Engineers have to solve like 4 key challenges. First up, stability. These cities really need to stay level and safe during storms and waves. Some cities are, tethered to the seafloor with these flexible mooring systems, while others are actually fully mobile. Floating cities need to generate their own power, mostly from solar, wind or wave energy. They also have to recycle their own waste and, of course, desalinate water. Concrete is pretty popular because it's heavy and long-lasting in salt water. But companies are also exploring things like self-healing materials, floating bamboo, and even 3D printed coral structures that attract marine life. This isn't just about staying afloat, it's about building entire ecosystems that thrive above and below the surface. Floating cities aren't just about survival, they're a chance to reinvent how we live. Because starting from scratch means you can bake in smart design from day one. No cars, no problem. Electric boats and bike-friendly streets reduce emissions. Urban farms, grow your food locally. No diesel trucks needed. Waste-to-energy systems, burn trash cleanly and power your lights. And here's the kicker, floating cities could also help us restore the oceans. Some designs include artificial reefs that attract marine life, rebuild fish populations, and filter water naturally. In other words, these cities don't just avoid environmental damage, they actively heal it. That's a level of ambition you don't often see in regular cities. Okay, but how much does a floating city cost? So, short answer, a lot. Oceanix Busan's first phase alone has an estimated cost of $600 million. And the Maldives project, well, that one's somewhere in the billions. And honestly, these are still just prototypes. Scaling up to house millions of people would take like trillions of dollars and honestly decades of work. Plus, there's the issue of who actually gets to live there. Right now, most floating city plans are aimed at wealthy residents or governments with, really deep pockets. That raises some uncomfortable questions. Will floating cities become luxury escapes for the elite? And will climate refugees be priced out of the very solution that's supposed to save them? If we're not careful, we could end up with a world of floating fortresses for the rich and drowned homes for everyone else. Let's not pretend this is a silver bullet. Floating cities come with huge challenges. Legal grey zones. Who owns the ocean? What laws apply if your house is in international waters? These questions have no easy answers. And then there are maintenance nightmares. Saltwater corrodes everything. Floating cities would need constant repairs, cleaning and upgrades. Climate irony. Building these cities requires materials like concrete and steel, which are very carbon intensive to produce. It's quite the paradox, isn't it? Then there's the philosophical critique. Are we really fixing the problem, or just floating away from it? It's a question that makes you pause and think, doesn't it? Instead of adapting to sea level rise, shouldn't we be fighting to stop it in the first place? It's a challenging thought, but one worth considering. Despite the challenges, one thing is clear: the future will be watery, and floating cities might be one of the most elegant, daring responses we've ever imagined. They force us to think bigger, not just about climate resilience, but about what a city can be: modular, mobile, self-sustaining, in harmony with nature rather than at war with it. They could offer safety to climate refugees, experimentation for architects, and a fresh start for our most vulnerable coastal communities. Or they could remain the stuff of tech billionaire dreams and pretty YouTube renders. The real test isn't whether we can build floating cities. It's whether we're willing to build them for everyone, not just the wealthy few, and whether we can float not just our buildings, but our values too. So what do you think? Are floating cities the lifeboats of the future, or just another shiny distraction from the real fight against climate change? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's ready to sail into the future.